Hey there, Trooper Stars. Dave Schmidt here, and today we're going to talk about Lending Loop. Alright, so we're back and we're going to talk about Lending Loop, but before I get back to my review, I just wanted to reminisce a bit. I remember a few years ago we kept hearing about different peer-to-peer lending groups down in the United States, and I remember being kind of jealous because I'd always look into them and we didn't have access to them. And I actually kind of forgot about the whole thing until recently. And recently what I started using was Lending Loop, which as far as I can tell is the only kind of regulated platform we have up here in Canada right now. So I wanted to share my experience with you about how that's going and whether or not I think it's a good thing or not. Now first off, I did a blog post about this. You can check the link up there. Where I go into a bit more detail. That's over at mymoneymarch.com, and there's also some other really good content over there. Now, in the past, I've experimented with investing in junk bonds, and I sort of determined that it was difficult for a retail investor like me to invest in junk bonds or really any kind of bonds without going the ETF route or the mutual fund route. And what I didn't like about using those funds is that they kind of like traded traded bonds, and I was more a fan of holding the bond to maturity. And the prices of those ETFs and mutual funds sort of fluctuated and stuff, and I understand that bonds fluctuate in value, but my kind of thinking of it was that if you hold the thing to maturity, it seemed less risky to me than to kind of be trading the things. The other thing that I found about just individual bonds is unless you're going for something really junky, the interest rates or the rates of return were super low, atrociously low, I'd say. Now, I'm not saying that can be part of your portfolio or your overall investment strategy. I just, I guess, was hoping to invest in debt and get paid for it, not take on a bunch of risk and get 2% returns. It just seemed ridiculous to me. Now, Lending Loop, on the other hand, it seems like it really ranges from about 7% up to 15 or even 20% if you go with some of the riskier, sort of junkier notes that they have. One thing I like to do is sort of spread out my risk. So I get what they call the A notes, and then there's the E notes, which are like the lowest quality, highest risk, but highest rate of return. Anyways, I like to spread my money out throughout that. So you can kind of offset some of the junkier stuff, for the term I keep using, with some of the stuff that is a little more certain and their credit rating is a little better. So I wanted to explain how this actually works. So the first thing you do is you sign up, and actually down below in the link in the description down there you can find a link to Lending Loop, and I guess I'll just say that that's a referral for me. If you happen to go through that and give or put $1,500 onto the platform, I would get $25. You're free to do the same, actually. So if you enjoy it, you can get your friends to sign up that way. I'm not really expecting that to happen, but certainly if you're interested in that, it'd be great. But so you go down and you sign up, and then the first thing you have to do is fill out a bunch of paperwork or forms online. and then you're going to fund your account. They have some different options about how to do that. I found it really easy to do, to set up, and about a week later the funds are ready to go and rolling in there. One neat thing they have is they have an automatic deposit option. The minimum for that's $200 a month. So if you want to do dollar cost averaging in some ways into that, or just an automatic deposit into that, you can, but just know that it's $200 a month. So once your account is funded, they have a really interesting marketplace where you can go and look at the notes that are available, and you can see which ones interest you. So it says the kind of risk profile of each company. It says what they're going to use the money for. It says some history about the company, their financials. So you can actually dig in pretty deep and decide whether or not each note is of interest to you, and whether you want to lend to that company. And I haven't said this yet. One thing I want to mention is that these are all companies and businesses. They're not individuals. So I think traditionally the peer-to-peer thing has been peer-to-peer in that it'd be me to you or you to me. It wouldn't be me to a trucking company or you to a some kind of photography company. But that's what this is. We're lending money to businesses, small businesses generally, and so that's I feel in some ways better about that, because it I guess in my mind, especially since you can look into the financials and stuff, it seems like kind of safer in some ways. And that's not to say it's safe. There's certainly risk involved, but I kind of like the lending to businesses idea better than lending to Joe Blow down the street. So yeah, you go through there and you can look at the different notes available. One thing I'll say is it's not a super jam-packed marketplace with all kinds of different companies. It seems like usually there's somewhere anywhere between 5 and kind of 30 maybe notes on the go at any one time. So there's not like this crazy amount of choice, but that doesn't mean you have to just invest all into those ones and just go from there. You can be more methodical about it and wait for the right notes to come up. So yeah, you pick your notes. The minimum amount you can invest or lend to each one is $25. I don't know if there's a maximum or not, but I chose to do $25 to each of the companies that I picked. They also have an auto lend feature, so you kind of say, okay, I only want to invest in companies that are A, B, and C. I don't want any of the D or E notes. And it'll and that goes well with an automatic deposit. So it'll take your money and they'll invest for you. You don't have to do as much of the research. It's totally up to you whether you want to do that or not. I have that signed up on mine because I felt like it would just work better that way. So once you've done the notes, once you've lended to them, there is a kind of a finalizing period where each note has to get enough people have to actually fund it or lend to it for it to go through. So there's usually a 30-day period where they have to collect the funds, collect the commitments, I guess is the terms they use, from lenders. And once they fulfill the amount, then the lending loop finalizes some stuff with them, and then it moves on to you basically start tracking the note and they start paying out interest. And so that pays you over time for until the loan matures. There's lots of tools for tracking sort of how that's going. You can see if there's any defaults, which I'll talk about in a second. You can see how much time is left to maturity. One thing I should note is that you can't actually sell the notes. There isn't a secondary marketplace, which, like I said earlier when I was talking about bonds, I'm not overly interested in that. I'd rather hold to maturity. So you should know that up front that there's a time where your capital will be locked up, essentially. Now, what about default? If the company does default, Lending Loop will do their best to collect those funds. I'll be honest, I haven't been through that yet, so I'm not sure how that works exactly, but on their site they have all sorts of stats and information about the statistics of how often that happens. I guess I'll see. I'll talk about it here in a bit, but I don't think this should be a huge part of your portfolio. So, if we're talking 5% and something goes haywire with one of your $25 notes. I don't think that's a huge deal, and I think that just comes with the territory. So yeah, speaking of which, what do I think? Do I think this is right for everyone? Well, I'll come right out and say that I do believe this could be a great addition to a well-diversified portfolio. That's not to say that it's right for everybody. I don't think you should go into this, putting all your money into this or even half your money. I think 5% would be a good maximum. That's what all I would feel comfortable with anyways. That you could put into this sort of thing, because it is risky. Now, you can do a bit of offsetting that by reading about the companies. I'll just give you an example. One of the companies that I have a note with is a trucking company, and they were borrowing money to buy more trucks because they had so much demand they needed more equipment to keep up with the demand. So I felt I was more comfortable lending to that company than I did to the Chinese extract company. But having said that, it's totally up to you how what you're comfortable with risk. And like I say, I do feel more comfortable giving to businesses than I do to people. So yeah, that's kind of how that all works. That's what I think about it. I think it is a great opportunity for us up here in Canada to get into the peer-to-peer lending space. And yeah, I'd like to hear from you guys though. If you have experienced Lending Loop, what your experience has been. Feel free to like, comment, thumb up this video, subscribe, and ring that bell. And we will see you next time.